Right, we're live.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, members. Good evening, officers. Good evening to all those who are watching our live stream tonight of the Town Centre Revival Committee. This is a meeting that is being held remotely by the council. It is being streamed live onto the council's YouTube channel. We are not in control of the live comments feeds. If you are using the live comment feed on YouTube, please do so considerately of others. We have 6 items on our agenda this evening. We will be moving into part 2 on officer recommendation for item 6, but we will address that when we get to it. Can I ask all members, officers and speakers, if you are not speaking, to mute yourselves throughout the duration of the meeting so that we do not get any interference as we're going along. First of all, is agenda item 1, apologies for absence. We have none. This is a full house of the committee tonight. And I'm also welcoming Councillor Brockman, who is here to speak on item 6. Declarations of interest, agenda item 2. Is there any member with a declaration of interest? No member is indicating. We move on to agenda item 3, which is the minutes of our previous meeting held on the 10th of November. Firstly, are there any matters arising from the minutes? Councillor Henry.
Thank you, Chairman. There's a mention, Matt in the last session gave an update on the Langdon Post Office. Now, obviously, Alan's brought a motion on Thursday night to that. He mentions that it was noted the Post Office had informed Swan that they would not now be taking up space in the Langdon Library. Following some inquiries, I'm sure Alan's found the same thing. They have maybe informed Swan, but they haven't informed Essex. So Essex are still fully engaged in the expectation that they will be coming on board. So maybe not a matter for the minutes, but certainly maybe a matter for this committee to think about. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Henry. Are there any other matters arising in the minutes? No, in which case, can I ask members of the committee to unmute themselves and I'll go round to ask for permission to sign them as a true record. Councillor Harrison?
In favour.
Councillor Burton-Sampson?
Favour.
Councillor Headley?
Agreed.
Councillor Henry?
In favour.
Councillor Morris? You're on mute, Don. You unmute yourself, Councillor Morris? I could read his lips that he said in favour, but we can't take that as read. So, Don, can you hear us?
In favour.
And I'm in favour as well. So that's a full house. Thank you, members. The minutes are carried. Agenda item 4 is the work programme. Members, does anyone wish to add or subtract to the work programme? Councillor Burton-Sampson?
This is hopeless.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I was just wondering whether we could have an agenda item added back onto there concerning Brook House. It was on there some time ago, but seems to have dropped off. And I think we all know that we need to be continuing to focus on how we support the future of that building for the residents who live there. So it'd be great if we could see that back on the work programme.
Yeah, absolutely. Agreed. Councillor Harrison and Councillor Headley.
Can I just comment on 2020-2021 Wickford plan, review of regeneration plan? I think that's been left there, unfortunately, because we've overtaken that event. We've started reviewing already, as you will recall, an item later on the agenda. So it's been left on there, I think, as an old Spanish practice, perhaps. Perhaps anyone can comment on that. I did raise it yesterday.
Okay. Yeah, no, you're right. We are hearing later on this evening a bit more about that plan. So that's right. We can take that off as a standing item there, and then we can, as and when we need to, put it back on as things emerge. So we'll do that. Councillor Headley.
Can you just confirm, please, Leader, that the town centre updates will include information that's appropriate where Basildon have acquired the freehold of properties within the town centre?
Yes, you are aware, obviously, of reports that have gone to Policy and Resources. And Policy and Resources is obviously responsible for acquisitions, but as and when any acquisition is made, that can form part of the update not just in Basildon, but across the borough as and when they happen. So as we've done previously on other acquisitions we've made throughout the town centre, as and when appropriate, they will form part of the update. So, yep.
Thank you.
I can give you that assurance. Are there any other matters for the work programme? No, we are asked to endorse, so can I ask members to unmute themselves and go to Councillor Harrison.
In favour.
Councillor Burton-Sampson.
Favour.
Councillor Headley.
Agreed.
Councillor Henry.
In favour.
Councillor Morris. Don, are you with us? I'm sincerely hoping you've frozen there, Don.
Well, he's not muted.
He's also not moving. Councillor Morris. Oh, he's gone. We'll never know. I vote in favour. If he comes back, I'll ask him, but for the time being, we'll take that as carried for the work programme. Agenda item 5 is the Basildon Town Centre Cultural Strategy. And we've got Mark Davey from Future City, who has worked with members on internal meetings over the summer and has been doing some work for us, who is going to make a presentation or deliver a presentation this evening. I see Don has come back, has he? Don, can you hear me? Just unmute yourself, Don. This is more painful than it needs to be. Don, can you unmute yourself?
Done so.
Before you mute yourself again or go, are you in favour or against the work programme?
And fade it out again.
Are you in favour of the work programme, Don? Forget it. Don't worry. We'll never know. The next item then is looking at the cultural strategy. And this, as I say, Future City will be talking through this. This is in relation to the regeneration strategy that is coming forward for Basildon Town Centre at this moment in time. And as we know, that the ambition for us within the regeneration of Basildon Town Centre is to ensure that we put arts and culture at the heart of it. Basildon is a big borough. It is a diverse borough. It has 5 distinct towns, and this cultural strategy is unique to the regeneration of Basildon. It would not be right for it to talk about the regeneration of any other one of our distinct towns. This is bespoke for the new town and particularly for the town centre, as Mark will allude to. So, Mark, I'm going to hand over to you, and I believe, Sarah, we're going to share the screen so that we can see the presentation, and then I'll take questions after we've had the presentation.
Right. Can everyone see my screen now? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, great. Okay, so let's. Okay, hopefully everyone's seeing it. So very quick introduction. Thank you very much for your time this evening. There's quite a lot to show you. I'm going to show you the sort of headlines of the strategy. The strategy will be then distributed after Christmas. And everything I talk about here will be sort of backed up with materials that support some of the assumptions. Just also to make the case here, this list, if I can read down it very quickly, it's making a case for culture as a catalyst for the regeneration and reimagining of Basildon Town Centre. It's providing a cultural template and evidence for the use of art and culture in other borough towns in the future. I think a lot of things I'm going to share will really travel very well. It will support and strengthen investment in the 3, we've called them the 3 cultural anchors, the Towngate Theatre, the new cinema and the new FE College. We'll be making a case that this is a real bonus for the town, and we can make a lot of use out of them. Benefit Basildonians throughout the borough by reinvigorating the town centre, and then focusing resources and partnerships on big ideas to give us a position in the county and beyond. And then it picks up on the leisure and cultural policy as a place to be proud of and a place where everyone prospers. So again, some of the ideas that we're bringing through hopefully support these ideas about community, residents and partners beginning to get maximum impact, town centre that's clean, green, safe and accessible, promoting, encouraging cultural activity across the town centres, cultural heart, initiatives that encourage the least active residents to take up physical activity. And then within the last section there, making sure there's participation, that there's quality and breadth, that is financially stable, and that we work with partners to promote health and well-being. These are all big ideas. I think, at the moment, there's some really interesting conversations about the role of culture in terms of regeneration. Now, I want to put these in. I promise I almost think this is the last time I ever want to show these images, and I'm sure you're fed up with them as well. But as I was saying earlier before we started, and this particular project is very important for me as somebody who was born in Basildon and was got the best of it, and I think of that period in the 60s and 70s as I grew up and worked in the local shops and went to this local school, went to Friends and then went off to university. I had a good time, and I think that Basildon had this kind of pioneering spirit, good employment. All my uncles were working, whether it was the tractor factory or the Shell refinery or working in careers or wherever. There was a lot of energy, it was a very good community spirit and pioneering. Now, sadly, this last week in the FT, when they wanted an example of the failing retail centres, they used Basildon, and it's become too much of a easy target, it seems to me, that Basildon's always used as a kind of case study for something which is wrong. And what I really want to get back with this cultural strategy, and I'm unapologetically wanting to be ambitious here, is for Basildon to be seen as pioneering again. So I'm just showing you this couple of slides briefly. One of the big projects that, UCT works all over the world on cultural and placemaking projects, and we work for the public sector and private sector. In this case, just very briefly, this is Wembley Park, where we've been involved in a major strategy now for about 2 years. And there's a lot of characteristics here that I think are relevant to Basildon. It's a strong retail centre around the London Designer Outlet, but a bit tired. And what we looked at doing was making the public realm really exciting, theatrical, busy, and encouraging a lot of kind of energy, using arts and culture to do it. When you had shops that were empty, like the bottom left, they became pop-up stores for young emerging businesses and creative talent. And gradually, independents have been encouraged to join the retail centres on good rents, low peppercorn rents, and partnerships with some of the bigger businesses. This is not a property developer on their own. This is working with Brent, who we encouraged to apply for the London Borough of Culture, and they won it. And here again, you can see some of the things, the Wembley Art Trail, looking at the steps and turning them into artwork, encouraging theatres and creatives to move into the area, and joining it all up with the retail and local people. And I think if we ever get a chance post-COVID to go and do a little trip there, I'd love to take you there to meet the Brent councillors and Quintain to talk about this strategy. So it's really been driven by culture and big ideas. The big idea for Wembley Park was a new creative district for Brent. So Basildon is lots of competition. We've got competition along the estuary. We've got competition on the edge boroughs, Enfield and Ilford and Romford and so on. We've got competition on the other side of the river. We've got competition for everything: inward investment, new ideas, government money. Everyone's manoeuvring around each other at the moment. But one of the big things that joins them all together is culture. So if you just look very briefly at this spread, Purfleet, Colchester, each of them is very deliberately taking sort of a big idea around the arts and owning it. So Purfleet's got the Quartermaster Studios. Dagenham's just announced the largest film studio for 25 years. Amazing coup to get that. Silvertown's having a new arts foundry. Woolwich has got a new national hub for experiential arts. Kent has got this new research laboratory, and Margate's got the Turner Contemporary. And there are many more. I mean, I could do another sort of 10 or 12 of these to show you what towns are doing to embrace the arts and culture. Now, what's fantastic about Basildon is we've got 3 really great things happening. We've got the theatre, which is you continue to support and is sitting there. We've got the new cinema. We've got the FE College. We've got we've calling them 3 anchors. And what they allow us to do is to start to spread out from those things. So it's not just about going to the cinema and seeing a film. It's not about just going to the theatre. It's about starting to almost break the walls down and bring them out into the public realm. Theatre out in the public spaces, maybe a digital film festival as part of the cinema, small businesses and creatives that sort of support those areas. So I've talked about this idea of the cultural anchors, and then creating a sort of cluster or creative cluster around those core ideas. So it's fantastic that we've got them, because if we didn't have them and we were starting from scratch, I think, it would be very difficult given the sort of things that are happening around us. So one of the big ideas that we would really like to propose is that Basildon, in a kind of, pioneering spirit and confident spirit, talks about itself as a creative tech town. We talked about this before in previous work, the Basildon On piece of work, which led to the Arts Council funding. You've got a whole range around you of creative tech and digital technology companies using it for all sorts of purposes. So here we could have Basildon really focusing around the digital economy and creativity as at the heart of its offer. And there's the big problem, I think, as well with Basildon is at the moment, those businesses like Leonardo and BAE Systems and so on are facing the other way. There's not really a reason for them to face into the town until we give them a reason. So if we start to talk about ourselves as a creative digital centre with some creative industries, with co-working, with some studios, encouraging creatives to come back into the middle of the town alongside the retail and other offers, we start to then tap into what these businesses are interested in, which is creativity, wanting to be part of a really interesting place and wanting to invest in that place. We've got to give them a reason to invest. And with plenty of reason why digital technology and creativity is a big area. I mean, we've got the UK funding in this area is growing. It's a major growth area and will be post-Brexit. We've got some amazing areas like concentration of computer programming jobs, IT digital creative in the sector. We've got companies and businesses all around us, advanced manufacturing companies. We've got a digital tech sector in the UK digital economy. So there's lots and lots of kind of examples, and we flesh this out in the strategy that says that once we start using this term and start encouraging them to look back inwards, well, there'll be, I think, an extraordinary amount of interest in what Basildon is doing. And then I remember when we were looking back over a number of documents, but there's this thing at the point at the top. While the South East as a region already contributes more GDP for manufacturing, from research and development than anywhere else in the UK, no identifiable centre exists. The sector is dispersed. So we're making the case for Basildon to be that centre. And then that was a response to the Thames Estuary 2050 Growth Commission. And then again, looking down that list below, there's plenty of evidence, even with pre-COVID, that there's a lot of kind of energy around this sector in Basildon and the surrounding area. And then just quickly, I just wanted to show you the creative industry, the growth areas at the moment in the Southeast are the creative industry growth and what they call the creative industry economy and the knowledge economy. This is where the growth is. It's where the money's going. It's where they're looking for exemplar projects to invest in. It's one of the reasons we got that Arts Council funding, because we made that case. So we, unashamedly want to sort of go for that growth area. What is creative tech? It sounds really grand. It's actually quite simple. It's lighting, kinetic art, it's projection, it's graphic design, it's smart technologies, it's 3D printing. It's Internet of Things. These are all achievable areas that we can start to own, and the FE College will be doing it. The creative tech will be used in the cinema. It's used already in the theatre. So it's effectively grouping up around a very broad area of creativity and starting to own that area. And second, I'm just going to, before I go on to the next slide, the work we've done around the world has always been trying to find, with people that we work with, a big idea that we own. So the first idea is that we think that Basildon is a creative place. It wants something that stitches together and pulls back in all of these disparate things that are happening and focuses it on the centre. The second big thing, which I think is really exciting, is this. It's the recent award for the Thames Estuary Production Corridor, which is to put the creative industries at the heart of the estuary. So this is already underway. And Basildon features I'm going to go to the map here. If you look on the map, you can see the organisations and towns that are involved. So all the way down the estuary on both sides, you've got the various towns involved. And what we really want to do is, I think what we should be doing is for Basildon to be saying to that consortium, we want to be part of it, but it's not just going to be an individual project as part of Creative Estuary. We want to be the tech town. we are going to be, we'll embrace this whole idea of the creative estuary. We're completely positioned to do that. We have a new town centre, which is going to be really exciting. And we as a council are going to back this. But in return, we want you to actually support our position as being the creative tech centre. So the reason for this is we need 2 or 3 big ideas that attract attention, that put us on the map, that get everyone excited, particularly, the business sector, because no one can go it alone anymore. The council can't do it on their own. The Arts Council won't fund us, and businesses won't just do it themselves. Finding some common goals, not just that the town centre should be recreated, that we should rediscover our sort of pioneering spirit and all the rest of it, but what's our position? What do we own? What are we good at? What could we be good at? And then there's some really interesting things that are coming as initiatives out of this funding, which we should be going for. Firstly, there's the Estuary Festival, which I think we're already involved in Pitsea. The Estuary Works, new creative workspaces for creative and digital businesses, creative labs, the Corridor Commissions, digital innovation, Regeneration 2030, which is an apprenticeship scheme for young people, and the Estuary Producers, which are residencies. These are already things that are established, which have only literally just been announced. So what this idea is to push the arts along the estuary, push culture as a big idea, try to create new employment and new skills and training around it. And at the moment, there are individual projects like Dagenham's new film studios, but I don't think a whole town has actually said, right, well, we as Basildon Town Centre, we are going to be part of that initiative. So when you look at this diagram, which I've cropped, Basildon's leading role in the framework, we are on there, we do appear, but I think we should be branding ourselves as a really powerful kind of partner, and we should be meeting them as quickly as possible in the new year to look at what we can do for them, but what they can do for us. What we end up with is we start to look at the Basildon's a creative tech town. We're part of the Thames Estuary Production Corridor. We have absolute community partnership in the projects that come out of this. At the moment, I'm just thinking about structures. I'll talk about specifics in a minute. We're encouraging inward investment. We're encouraging property developer engagement as part of the big idea, not on their own, doing their own thing. We've got council investment already underway, and we've got business partnerships. And in the middle of that, we have our community who are going to be part of that group. And you can see down the left some of the ideas that we're trying to encourage. What we've looked at as well is a model for this, which we've developed. We recently worked for the Business Investment District in the West End, which is really suffering from COVID, the impact of COVID. And we came up with an idea which we sort of transferred, which is what we call the 5 Cs. So you have, if you like, the council is civic, you've got the commercial sector that could potentially that are both impacted by the town centre and can bring money and investment. We've got the cultural sector, which is the big visionary idea. We've got the consumers that we need to get back in the town. And we've got the community that should benefit from all of this hard work and investment. Well, you might say, I guess at this point, it's like, oh, this all sounds very fanciful, how does this work? But we've already started. We on the original strategy, which was actually quite a similar idea about switching on the sort of creatives that surround the town centre that are working independently, small businesses that have not at the moment no reason to cluster. And on the back of that, we managed to achieve some investment, which is fantastic. And that investment's already underway. So many of the sort of these kind of seeding ideas are already started. I'm just listing them on the left. The Innovation Centre for Culture and Entrepreneurship, the Open Lab takeover of the town centre vacant spaces, town centre businesses commissioning partnerships, an art school for local people to create activities in the town centre, and the Basildon Festival. So that money is already going into the centre to start making this happen. So this is, again, not about a blank page, but about almost collecting up everything that's going on around us and putting it into a box. Those businesses exist. They will talk to us if we have a big idea. The retail spaces that are empty can be repurposed to create a range of new spaces if we want to. We've got investment in the new public realm and landscaping. That could be boring or it could be exciting. It is up to us to push it and make sure that it's the latter. I just want to briefly talk about audience. I as a baby boomer, and sadly of a certain age, the group that we really should be thinking of, as well as us, is what's here called Gen Y and Gen Z, which are the millennials that we hear so much about. But they are the people in employment. They are the one, or hopefully employment. They're the ones who are running businesses. They're the ones that are the main audience for the retailers and other groups. And what they're interested in is what are these terms, which sound again very fanciful, but they really are something that's happening all over over Europe, over the island. So they're interested in purposeful living. Why am I here? What's the purpose of life? What am I part of? Am I part of some big vision or big idea or community? Social value, value-added lifestyle, and low carbon living and wellness and community. These are real millennial interests. So by a cultural strategy for Basildon that really focuses on a big idea and a sense of belonging, you're immediately again tapping into this community of people who will actively want to be involved in these ideas. It really is focused very much on them as much as anything. Then we've got 4 cultural principles. Again, I'll explain how this works. We imagine that there's a room with 4 boxes. On the lid of every box, there's a title. The first one is everything should try and be homegrown. Everything we do should be original if we can make it original. We should commission, we should make things happen from the center. The second is we should be pioneering and get that Basildon pioneering spirit. The third is creative technology is the future, whether you've got a computer in the car or you're using your smartphone, creative tech is the future. And lastly, urban green, which is really bringing that sort of greenness that's all around Basildon into the center. How do we pull some of that sort of quality of the green and blue around us into the middle? And particularly, how do we encourage health and wellness and sustainability? And okay, so we've got 8 focus areas in the strategy document. Creative workspaces, encouraging creative industries to the town centre. Creative presentation, which is encouraging the use of the visual and performing arts and design arts in the centre. Partnership and collaboration, encouraging particularly business to invest in Basildon's creative future. Education and learning, using the arts to support lifelong learning opportunities. A public arts programme that helps us become a destination. Walk, run and cycling, and about fitness. And again, there's the huge growth, particularly in cycling at the moment. Digital Boulevard, which is this really exciting cluster that we can build around the 3 organisations I mentioned earlier. And then lastly, this green spine, which is bringing green into the town. And then within that, you've got all sorts of opportunities around food, health, education, art, and so on. And it might look like this. I mean, these are, there's some seating for at Spitalfields, which was a sort of the street furniture. There's pop-up urban farm there, and with our experiments on urban growing. There's really nice little play spaces. There's talks and events in a pop-up space in the middle. There's just the idea of walking and promenading through a really attractive, green and interesting place. One thing that's on the neck, I think I may mention it later. I'll come back to it later. The other big growth area in retail at the moment is what they call experiential economy. That is, people are interested not just in going to a shop, but also maybe seeing how things are made or experience it. So Nike, for instance, are increasingly working with theatre companies to do events that use Nike products. So there's a kind of link, if you like, between the Basildon Town Centre being able to be very theatrical, fit for purpose, load-bearing points, maybe programmable lighting, things that can just make it kind of a good place for people to do launches, for businesses to go get involved, for schools to come into the centre. Digital arts and creativity might look like a whole range of things from projection on buildings using film projectors, pop-up structures in the centre, VR technology, and light festivals and so on. These are all things that are happening around the world. They're happening in the UK. They should be happening in Basildon. We should be using Basildon as a canvas for all this kind of creative energy. And I just want to use this as an example of the creative workspace idea. This is in Barking and Dagenham. What's happened here is on the Ice House Court Studios. The 106 agreements between the developers and the council is that the council takes the ground floor commercial as part of the 106. It then passes it out to Bow Arts Trust, who then administer it, and then they encourage creative industries to move in. So it takes the kind of retail problem, if you like, away from the developer, and it creates affordable workspace. So it's just one model that's not far away from us that in terms of how this might work. But there are lots of models which we're putting into the document. And then I show this very briefly. This is the retail routes in Milan. But again, what happens here is there's a big festival around design. The shops all become part of it. They all put stickers on the windows. There's maps getting you around the town centre. And all the way through, there's things happening. And it's a very famous festival. It started off in a very tough part of Milan, very difficult to get to. And one of the reasons they did it was because no one went there. It's now world famous. I think 7 years it's been going. It's now world famous, but it wasn't when it started. And then I just want to talk briefly about cycling. The growth in cycling is off the scale in every sense, from bike sales to, the sort of bike space and so on. So, we talked about this idea of 10 revolutions: infrastructure, wayfinding, storage, bike stands, trails, events, training, a cycle hub, voucher schemes and retail. They're all interconnected. And again, I think that Basildon could own the idea of itself as a really proactive cycling centre. And this is not difficult to do. I think you get a huge amount of support from business on this. So all of this, it all goes together, nearly there, sorry everyone. We end up with Basildon Town Centre as an ambitious, innovative and inclusive place. It's a creative tech, it's got its creative cluster, it's got a reinvigorated centre. It's trying to bring back into the centre the kind of people who probably want to come back and businesses that want to invest in the area, but there's a big idea that draws them in. And just finally, the final slide is just some milestones really. We'll finish the document and go putting out for it to be seen after Christmas in January. So some of the things we've been looking at would be, how would you administer this? You do it through some of the existing structures, the Revival Committee, the Council's Delivery Leads and Team, BTCM, and the Basildon Consortium that Made Public are involved in. We also would recommend for you to consider a new forum for sort of, well, we've talked about CEO sort of leaders in business, education, cultural leaders to come together so that they can start seeing how each of their areas actually is benefited by collaboration. And also what we've called it a cultural anchors meeting. Let's get the film, the cinema, and the theatre and the FE College, let's get them out the walls and bring them into the middle. Let's start supporting those organisations by bringing other sympathetic groups in. Meetings, discussing with investors, especially those around the outside of the town, how we can get them back into the middle. Meeting the Thames Estuary Production Corridor people, and internal meetings to brief officers and members about how we could start to implement this. And we've done this elsewhere. Creative industry space audit, what's available that's past, present and future. Can we develop a model for affordable rents with local developers, with the business and the public sector? The council also has spaces. Can we develop a different set of creative spaces? There's a list there of the type of things we might be looking at, and particularly about this opportunities for creative space in new developments where there's a certain amount of commercial offer. And then projects, co-creation, working with the community to develop these ideas, an embedded arts program which covers everything that is invested in the town. Cultural infrastructure, particularly the public realm, being what I would call fit for purpose, is to be theatrical. That's what we did, particularly in Wembley, and it's been very successful. Public arts program, a developer's strategy to ensure a joined up approach. Let's not, at the moment, you're going to find that developers will see the town as it is and would think about their designs for their houses and buildings being relevant to what they see. They need to see the vision, and they need to be thinking, we want to be part of this. And this is a great opportunity for the town to get them to think in a more creative way, encouraging them with a bit of arm twisting. Guides on creative tech, and then lastly, reviewing public realm and council initiatives that can support the cultural strategy. And all of this would then have a sort of comms support. So, sorry, I've probably talked a lot there, but I'm going to come out of my world, hopefully back in.
No, Mark, that was brilliant. Before I open this up to debate and ask members to come in, I believe Councillor Harrison was trying to get in prior, but I didn't see him. So Councillor Harrison, do you want to come in first and then we'll kick off?
Thank you, Chairman. Can I just say this? That was a brilliant presentation, Mark.
Thank you.
I must say this. You mentioned previously you'd had conversations during the summer and setting all this up. Now, Arts and Culture comes under the remit of the Neighbourhood and Public Spaces Committee. And as chairman of that committee, I have not been involved at all. And I'm slightly annoyed at that because we agreed in February the leisure and culture policy at my committee, which was agreed unanimously. And the policy was quite clear. And there's a line in there, I think it's on page 5, which says the policy is to apply equally to the whole borough. Now, on one line in that presentation, Mark did mention town centres. I appreciate that because I'm not opposed to what is here in proposed for Basildon. But my point is that the NMPS committee should decide the overall strategy for the borough, not only in arts and culture, but as we're doing with play areas, etc. We're doing it with that side of the house on the play review, the strategy for doing it. Why wasn't this brought to the NMPS committee so that we'd agree a strategy for arts and culture across the borough, and then we devolve that as it relates to the 5 towns, and this relates to the Basildon. There's not one area on the council to date, to my knowledge, where committees, it's gone across committees. There's areas where it goes up to policy and resources under the committee structure, but there's not something to take something from one committee to another committee and take it on board. Because on the last page on Mark's presentation, the top line was it's to be done through the Town Centre Revival Committee. Now, to me, we have a remit and we do it the way it's supposed to be organised, and that's the way it should be done. So that's my point. I will come on then, if I may, because we mentioned this, a lot was referred to in Mark's presentation to the Creative People Basildon arrangement, the £1.3 million Arts Centre grant. I've asked a question, I've had it from 3 officers and the leader, that funding only applies to Basildon Town Centre. Now, I asked someone on my behalf if they would contact Creative Basildon and ask, does the programme cover the entire borough? The answer received back was, yes, the programme does cover the entire borough. Next week, we will be distributing creative packs throughout Basildon. Billericay Food Bank will be distributing them in that area, but we can also post the packs directly to anyone that would like one. There are more details on the website. Also, if you sign up to become a community voice, we will send you news about how to take part in the programme. Now, it's either for the whole borough or it's not for the whole borough, because there's some of these things you can only do in Basildon Town Centre. Last council meeting, as chairman of NMPS, quite rightly, a question from Councillor Rimmer was directed to me. A lot of information on there, which I didn't get the opportunity to read all out or to answer completely because there were too many interruptions, as you might recall. But a lot of that detail on there did refer to the activities that were going to take place. Mark has mentioned some of them, but not all of them. And some of those in a smaller way, like as using unused retail shops to put things on, that could apply elsewhere. They could apply elsewhere. There's in Pitsea, Langdon, Billericay, Wickford. And I see this as an entity. And I don't think people must get carried away that there's only artistic talent south of the A127. That's the impression it creates. And it would be the wrong impression to create, because there's a lot of artistic talent north of the A127 as well, some of it in Wickford. So I think that should be taken into consideration. And I just wish, I'm pretty certain if it had come through the NMPS committee, it would have followed through this way. But I haven't been involved as chairman, and I only saw this agenda item when I received the agenda and not before. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Harrison. And I think much of that is for me rather than for any particular officer. So let me just say recommendation 2 is quite clear in this report that this is about approving the delivery of a cultural-led regeneration of the town centre. So that is what we are looking to do here tonight as part of this. And we are merely noting the contents of a draft cultural strategy. So it is absolutely 100% in the remit of this committee to look at delivering a cultural-led regeneration of Basildon Town Centre. In regards to the issue around the Arts Council, the money for the Arts Council is around the deprived areas, and that is part of the application that went in, which we received from the Arts Council. So that is the reason for it there. And the other thing, I think it was a key thing that Mark said in his presentation, although we as councillors are obsessed with borders and postcodes, actually Joe Public does move between different towns of our borough. And therefore there is every chance that people living in one of the 4 other towns in our borough will benefit hugely from Basildon's regeneration. And as Basildon is the biggest town in the borough, it is obviously stands to reason that the capital of the borough, if you like, which needs desperately to be regenerated, it can only be a good thing for our borough to not only deliver the cultural ambition that we are looking to do here, but also to deal with the big problem we have with a lack of civic pride and people that even within this borough don't want to be associated with Basildon. And that is a key part of what we're seeking to do with this regeneration as well. So the more we talk up division, I think the more that division will exist. The more that we talk about Basildon as being a place where actually we need to invest, and it is a priority to invest, and that actually has a lot to offer, the more likely I believe it is that we will bring people with us. I'd also say I think there are 2 particular concepts in Mark's presentation, or 3 actually, that I think are crucial. I like the idea of when you talk about Leonardo's and Fords and others, that they don't face us. And I think that's a really canny way of talking about it. The chief executive and I have had a number of conversations about even where Fords call themselves Fords Dunton, and they won't even refer to themselves as Ford Basildon or Fords Langdon, and that being one of those things where we would like that, but apparently it just can't. It's not possible within the bureaucracy of Ford Motors to change the name. But they very much are on the outskirts of the borough, and similarly with the economic development strategy that has just gone through the ED committee, they've been talking about how you get businesses more involved in the corporate social responsibility in Basildon and more engaged in Basildon. So the forum that is being suggested, I think, is a very good one and a very good idea to take forward. And I think one of the most compelling things, and we I think struggled as a council to articulate this probably for the first 9 months of the formation of the regeneration strategy, is that map that you showed on the screen of basically where, if you followed the train line out to Margate, you get all of these different cultural centres, whether it be museums, whether it be production houses, whether it be film studio, whatever it might be, all the way out. Because one of the pieces of opposition we found at the start of this was, well, why would this come to Basildon when you've got London on your doorstep? Why would people come to Basildon? And actually, when you see what our neighbours are doing along those kind of train tracks, the question really is not, why would people come to Basildon? It's why would we not want to do some of this when we know it is working elsewhere? So you get lots of this erroneous people talking about white elephants all the time when it comes to Basildon. And that's the kind of stuff that I think really has to stop, because if it's a white elephant, it means that you're not investing and you're not innovating enough in the spaces that you have. And those 3 anchors, I think, were quite right. The final thing from me as well, and as part of Generation Y, I absolutely like what you're saying there about why we need to appeal to people. And I think some of those kind of millennial interests that you've depicted there are actually Newtown original interests. They go right the way back. You came here because you cared about environment. You came here because you wanted a better public space for your family, but you also wanted to be part of something, and you wanted to be invested in something. And I think that, you know, that really is going back to the genesis of Basildon, really. And I think that's a really neat way of articulating. It's the best way I've seen it. And I should say one very final point for us is that I know our planning team are engaging with the developers already on tech. And so saying to the developers, are there 106 agreements we can put in place to help with the housing, for example, offering potential discounts for tech workers? Is that something that we want to enjoy? What does the public realm need to look at? I think we need to do more on the public realm. I think we've got to be clearer in our own minds about what we want to levy on developers for the public realm. But I certainly think that those conversations with the developers are happening, and it would be interesting to offline with officers for you, Mark, to share examples of where 106 agreements and obligations have been levied on developers that have helped with some of that stuff as well, particularly around Brent and Box Park. I think that would be really useful to understand and get our heads around. So yeah, outstanding presentation. As I sit and watch that, I just wish we could roll you out to our 4 other towns as well, so that we can do this all around the borough. That, you know, I certainly think that there is merit in that, because it kind of gets you thinking very clearly. So members, does any other member wish to come in on this and speak? Councillor Headley.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I think Councillor Harrison has a reasonable point in as much that it probably is in the remit of his committee to look at the strategy. But I don't think tonight's presentation precludes him from asking for it to be put on his work programme. I think it's also clear that this tonight is talking about the regeneration of Basildon Town Centre. And I found parts of the presentation very interesting, particularly the mention of Wembley, because Wembley's been through a number of iterations of regeneration going back to before the First World War. And I'm glad you resisted the temptation to mention the 1925 British Empire exhibition, which we're probably at a period in our history where the mention of Empire is a difficult part of our history. But of course, Empire Way up to Wembley Stadium, I don't think Sunderland's ever played at Wembley, is it? But never mind.
We have lost the last 5 times we've been there.
It's Charlton.
Probably some years ago. But I think it's interesting drawing those parallels. And of course, the previous administration was looking at an innovation warehouse, which certainly would have covered off the high-tech startup industries, 3D printing, all that good stuff that apprenticeships, training, working with the college. And I don't really object if we want to pull that into the town centre, but of course it does take it out of Pitsea, which would have spread some of the investment around the borough. I think the other interesting thing from my perspective is that this is not reinventing the wheel so much, but Lewis Silkin, that the current administration are so adept at quoting in their Basildon documents. He majored on this new town concept, including arts and culture as the glue that holds the town together. Holds the community together is probably a better way of expressing it.
Yes.
So this idea it's a more modern interpretation that you're trying to articulate. The narrative is the same though. It is, as Mark mentioned, that enthusiasm and that ambition that the new town has had when they first came to Basildon. And somehow over the years that has been lost. And I think it was very sad that the Towngate Theatre, which we all know was built under a Labour administration, and I think Councillor Harrison at the time was part of that administration. And I apologise if I'm not correct in that point. But you've got to remember the Towngate was closed for over a decade. And I think what we need to do this time is we must get it right, and we must find a sustainable model that is properly financed for the long term. And that's why it's so important that you get the design right. And is it surprising that industry is outward facing? Probably not. Ford is a multinational company. The corridor, again, when the town planners built Basildon, there was an industrial zone. The A127 and Cranes Farm Road delineates that industrial zone. There's never been great ambition for those companies to look inward to the town centre, which was seen as largely retail. And in fact, when you talk to those businesses, the vast majority of their executive staff don't even live in the borough. And I think that's something else you need to address, is that people will not identify with the borough unless they live there, unless their children are educated in the borough. And I think there's so many issues that need to be joined up. And okay, maybe this is a good start. You've got to start somewhere. And I certainly won't be opposing it for the sake of opposition. But I will need some convincing that we have to have a sustainable model. Too often in the past, we've grabbed at what looked like a good initiative. And the leader mentioned, we have to have this ambition, this vision, and why not Basildon? Well, that was exactly why we built the Sporting Village. It was a regional centre of excellence. Okay, we can argue about whether it should have been, 800 yards further south than it is. But the fact is, the consultants that did the feasibility study on that said we would have, if we were lucky, between 500,000 and 750,000 of visitors a year. The last full year it was open, it had 1.2 million. And it now really needs some more investment. It needs, I believe there's a chance the gym club have an annex at Eversley. I think there's an ambition to put another swimming pool in at Eversley. But without that sporting village, I don't think Basildon would have enjoyed, and we can say Basildon enjoyed the reputation of delivering something on budget, on time. It was used by the Japanese Olympic team, swimming team, and it really did put Basildon back on the map. Basildon has a lot to be proud of, and I for one won't be talking it down, but I think there has to be an acceptance that this is going to be a long-term project, and COVID and all the ramifications around that have yet to be overcome. I think I'll leave it there, Leader. I could go on, but I can see I'm probably boring you.
Not at all. I was actually finding myself in the unusual position of agreeing with a lot of what you were saying. I thought you were going to come out with your support for the youth zone as well. I thought we were going to have full house and bingo, but it wasn't to be at the end.
Well, you'll have to wait and see on that one, but please don't tell my leader you're agreeing with me.
I won't. He doesn't talk to me. He just interrupts me. Councillor Burton Sampson, how are you? What do you want to say?
I'm very good, and thank you for bringing me in. I just want to say a few things. So, we look back at Basildon, and it was a place when it was a new town that developed a really rich cultural offering, and we look at what's come out of Basildon in terms of our culture, great entertainers, performers, and so on and so forth. And there's a real legacy left there. To me, arts and culture, we talk a lot about placemaking. Well, it's the arts and culture that really makes a place. And it's not something that we can just say, right, this is what's going to be. It's something that evolves and continues to evolve over time. And I feel very much that over recent years, the culture has been ripped out of the borough, certainly out of the centre of the borough, the town centre of Basildon. It just doesn't feel like we have that cultural feeling there anymore, other than the Towngate Theatre. And it's important because culture is all about people being able to express themselves, being able to be creative, whether that be as a spectator or a participant. And it's just vital that we create an environment where culture can thrive. Now, to link that into the creative industry as well, and to tech and to digital and so on and so forth is really exciting, because it suits this borough down to a T to do that. That is one of our real USPs as a borough, is our tech industry. So I'm really excited by what you presented to us tonight, Mark, and thank you for that. It was a really great presentation. The one thing I would urge is that we take the community along the this journey with us. It's important with art and culture that the community has access, and I think that's really vital. So when we're working with Basildon and local groups, and to talk about what this may look like and how this may evolve over time, because I don't believe that this is something that we're just going to put the strategy in place and it's job done. It's not. This is a long-term developmental strategy that's going to grow with the town as the town continues to grow, but that we engage with the community and keep engaging with the community to understand how they want to be involved and what they want this to look like as well. But no, absolutely, it was very exciting, and thank you for your presentation tonight, Mark.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Any other members wish to come in? Councillor Henry.
Thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to say a huge thanks to Mark for the presentation. I thought it was really, really interesting. Always really, really good to see, other large towns and places as examples of what that, of what they're doing there, and to see what that looks like. To the Mayor's point, it is really important that we take the community with us. What we can't do is we can't be seen to be putting in place an arts and culture sort of strategy that makes them feel like they're being gentrified out of the system. They've got some real clear ideas on what they want to do themselves, and I think we've got to allow plenty of room for people to invest in just opinion as well as the actual arts themselves. To Councillor Harrison's point, obviously we're all elected for our own areas. It would be, we'll all want our own slice of the pie, but obviously we have to model this on the town centre regeneration and getting that where that needs to be. But it'll be interesting to see how that evolves, how that then maybe lends to further community ideas out in the other 4 towns. But I'm grateful for the presentation. I thought it was excellent. So thank you very much. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Henry. Councillor Harrison.
Thank you, Chairman. Don't get me wrong, please. I'm fully supportive of what Mark has produced for Basildon Town Centre. I think it's impressive. I've been consistent at this committee in support of what we're doing in Basildon Town Centre, and arts and culture plays a key role in that. My only concern was it plays a key role across the borough as well. It's not looking after our own interests. Basildon is important. I recognise it's the largest town, and I found myself also agreeing with Councillor Headley a lot tonight, and I think that was a very good speech by him. And he's correct. We need to do this in the Basildon Town Centre, but we must remember that arts and culture exists even on the outskirts of the borough, and there's talent out there who won't always be enticed into the centre. We make sure that they're looked after as well. My previous comments were about the way it came to the committee, not against what was going ahead, because I spoke to Mark yesterday, and what his vision, I think, is absolutely incredible. If everything you've said tonight, Mark, comes to actually happen, I mean, it would be remarkable. No doubt some will fall to the wayside or change slightly, but I think the outcome you're looking for, I think, is terrific. Really, really is. So thank you.
I don't know if I can
put
my hand up.
Yep.
Thank you very much for all your comments. I think, obviously, again, as somebody who comes from the town, there's no doubt this is special. And, I've really drawn on a lot of our kind of experiences on projects in both the public and the private sector. The thing I would say at the moment is previously the arts were always separate from, it was when I first started working in this sector, I would go into a room, particularly if it was in property or business, and I would talk about art. Everyone in the room would switch off. It was like, this is not serious. The difference now is the creative economy is so big that even businesses that you wouldn't think would be creative will either want to be in a creative place, or creativity comes into their product, their design of the products, keeping their workforce happy, being in an environment that's attractive and interesting. So the difference now, I think, is from say even 4 or 5 years ago, is the arts and cultural sector has become suddenly noticed by everyone. And that's going to be our positive, I think. This is going to be something really exciting for all parties. And the moment we get the private sector involved up to a point, completely understand it's got to be community driven and it's got to be good. But once we get the private sector in, because they need to be in places creative and interesting and engaging, and they want to be in a great public spaces, they want nice environments. So culture in this term is the idea, is not arts as such, it's the idea, it's life. Everyone gets kind of exercised by hardware, the buildings and the hard things. It's the soft stuff that's the interesting thing. What do people do? How do they live their lives? And Basildon has got to really, firstly, kind of draw out what's its strength. For me, it's about a pioneering spirit. That's what I think of as Basildon. Basildon in the bigger picture. And the second thing is to think of partnerships where we can look even bigger. That's why I think, linking it to the Thames Estuary production corridor, taking a big idea around creativity and technology. They're big, broad ideas. We can own them without getting caught in a corner somewhere. And I think what that will do is it will go out to Pitsea, to Wickford, to Billericay, and to the other towns will benefit from this. Because in the end, Basildon is a place that you don't, at the moment, you don't live in Basildon Town Centre, you live in those other places. So I completely see this as part of a constellation of opportunities for Basildon as a borough, rather not as well as the town. But if we use the town centre with the energy that's in there as our what's the word? As our kind of, it's our experiment. It's the thing that we can really sort of try things out, and we can then ship them out. We can try them on other places as well. So I am seeing the whole picture as much as the centre. I wouldn't want you to think that there was a red line around the outside that I wouldn't step across. In fact, as I was saying earlier, I try to, when I look above these places, and you're trying to think, what can I join myself to that makes us even bigger? So I love the idea of going back to the Thames Estuary production corridor people and saying, okay, Basildon's in for this, but if we come in, we want to be this. We're going to be this on the Thames. We're not just going to be a project. We're going to be a big part of what's saying. We want you to channel energy into us. And similarly around tech. Tech is huge. Therefore, if we represent good tech, creative tech, one would hope that the businesses and other parties will suddenly face inwards and say, well, that looks interesting. Maybe we should be down there. Maybe we should be part of that. So I think I'm trying to use the cultural idea as a hook, I think, to get energy and attention.
Brilliant. Okay, thank you. I've got Tom Ash and then Councillor Headley. Tom Ash.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of salient points, if I may, Chair, and please, if you wouldn't mind indulging me with members. The culture point is not lost on the Regen team, and I know the ambitions of the Regen strategy. I could quote you several examples, one of which will be close to your heart, Leader, National Glass Centre in Sunderland, which we were sort of central to, the Baltic Centre in Gateshead, the Sage Centre in Newcastle, the Millennium Bridge, all of which feature a mixture and a blend of regen and cultural activities. Medway, one I led was the Battle of Medway. We had the Prince from Holland. We had naval attaches. We had all sorts of representatives, great activities for the public as well. And as the report indicates, we're engaging through that consultation through Basildon Consortium and established arts and culture groups, as well as the wider public, through webinars that will be influencing and feeding into this cultural strategy. And we will be coming back to members with a further report in January. So this is a start of the journey, Leader and members. And we're giving everybody the opportunity to shape it, because it's not about the bricks and mortars. It's about the pulse that runs through the town, of which Basildon has a heritage that we all want to exploit. Thank you, Chair.
And just to be really clear, the Glass Centre is better than anything north of the Tyne that you mentioned. Just keep that really clear. Councillor,
Very good.
I think you want to come in. Councillor Headley, do you want to come in?
Yeah, thank you. It was only something that the Mayor mentioned, the unique selling point, the USP. My memory seems to have a figure of 260 million went into Thurrock for the Royal Opera House investment they had there. I don't think the USP in Thurrock is any greater than Basildon. So I think you need the confidence that Basildon has got something to offer. But we've got to acknowledge that we are in competition with every other town in the country. I mean, the Baltic it's actually in Gateshead, isn't it? Not Newcastle. It was actually a flour mill. It was a redundant flour mill. Yeah, I had the pleasure of visiting it when I had a day out with the mayor of Gateshead, or the leader of Gateshead, I should say. I think certain areas do have a history. If you take the film industry, that creative arts, that's based more or less in West London. You've got Elstree Studios, which are the Fairbank studio there. You've got Welwyn Garden City, had the old Gainsborough. Probably Councillor Harrison's the only person who remembers Gainsborough films. Denham, there were studios there. They were still using acetate film in those days. Ealing Studios, which was part of the BBC empire, was famous for the Ealing comedies. So West London has a history of arts and culture. So you have to find, as the Mayor said, that unique selling point that differentiates Basildon. But one of the other Labour councillors the other night mentioned indirectly Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And you can only do all this good stuff if everything else is right. You have to make sure that people have access to adequate housing, adequate employment, and their kids need an opportunity for education. And I think you have to be realistic that investment in all the cultural stuff can only follow on when you have all the other aspects of living in Basildon as good as it can be. But that doesn't mean I won't support it tonight.
Yeah, I think just on a couple of serious points, I think that the issue, the comparison, I don't know the figure, but the comparison you've made there with Thurrock, I think is an interesting one. And I think this is why it is so important for the council, in as far as possible, to speak with one voice when it comes to this regeneration strategy. I've mentioned it in full council a couple of times, but in the space of just 12 months, this council has attracted over £600 million of private sector investment, committed tier one investment into that town centre. So that is a sign that we're on the right path, and that when the council speaks confidently and when it really engages in these issues, it can really attract investment. The thing about Basildon is that everyone has heard of us. Everybody knows where we are. Everybody understands that we're an integral part of Essex. So I absolutely think we can do that. I've also been talking to the leader of Barking and Dagenham about their studios and what they've got coming on down there. I know there'll be more similar, without straying into part two, there'll be more similar things coming to other neighbouring boroughs in the not too distant future, where there may very well be a need for things like post-production and those kind of things, where Basildon, we've put forward in the draft local plan significant amounts of economic development space over and above what we know is happening in our town centre. So there's no reason why we can't also look to capitalise on what our neighbour is doing, and perhaps that's part of the Thames Estuary Production Corridor meeting that we need to have in the new year. So members, no one else is indicating to speak, so I'm going to move to the recommendations, but before doing so, just reiterate that I'd like, if possible, Thomas, your team and Mark to work on looking at the obligations that we could levy, and also as we hear about a report coming back in the new year, to understand a bit more about what a timeline might look like, when we could start seeing some of these things, and how long that would take as well. So that all fits into the phasing of the regeneration strategy, which members have approved previously. So members, the recommendations 1 and 2 are on your agenda. if I could ask you to unmute yourself, we will move to the vote. Councillor Harrison,
In favour.
Councillor Burton Sampson,
In favour?
Councillor Headley,
Agreed.
Councillor Henry,
In favour?
Councillor Morris,
In favour?
and I vote in favour as well. Mark, you have done something very few thought was possible, and you have achieved consensus. So less than a week after our full council meeting, that is a miracle. So well
Thank
done.
you. I'll buy you all a drink when I come into when I'm allowed out.
Yeah, well,
So,
I've been
tier
doing
three.
this borough for some time, I can tell you. But
We're
nonetheless,
not allowed to accept drinks off.
Oh, sorry.
It gets us into terrible trouble.
Oh God. No, well, thank you very much for listening to me. As I say, I come from, I think just to finish off, really, I would say the way that we've worked over the last 12 years is to be super resourceful. So I very much see this strategy as being embedded into a whole range of different things that are going to happen, rather than being a standalone arts budget in its own right. So yeah, we'll make it happen.
brilliant. Well, thank you, and
very
thank
much for
you
your
to
time.
all of your team, and wish you all a Merry Christmas and best wishes for the new year as well. So thank
And
you.
to you all as well. Thank you very much for your time.
Members, agenda item 6 is the Wickford Town Centre update, but we have been, on advice from officers, asked to move into part 2. Just so I can confirm, Caroline, Matt, Thomas, are you wanting to do that at the start of this presentation? You are nodding, in which case, members, if I can ask you to unmute yourself, we will take a vote on excluding the public and the press to protect the council's commercial interest. And I'm going to kick off with Councillor Harrison.
In favour.
Councillor Burton Sampson,
In favour?
Councillor Headley,
Abstain.
Councillor Henry,
Abstain?
Councillor Morris,
Abstain?
and I will vote in favour. Thank you to the watching public. If I can ask for the YouTube